Hello, everyone. I wanted to take a moment to welcome you to EVSC's College Prep Information Night. My name is Ryan Precy. I am the district's high school counseling coordinator, as well as the high school counselor at Harrison High School. Tonight, we'll be hearing from Mark Rusk, a college admissions counselor from the University of Southern Indiana, on college admissions process. Later, we will have Alex Samuel from Invest Ed will give us a presentation and overview of college financial aid. We also have Joseph Brinkley, the Director of Admissions for Ivy Tech, as well as Heather Cook, Admissions Counselor for the University of Evansville, monitoring the comments during this evening's event to answer any questions you have. So with that being said, I will now hand things over to Mark Rusk and his discussion on college admission.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm very happy to be here. I'd like to be here with people in the audience, but this is the best we can do. This is my 21st year at the University of Southern Indiana, and that entire time I've worked with students here in the Evansville area. And I have some typical things that I talk to people about the college admissions process and how to approach it, and what are the ins and outs of it. But I think before I do that, I want to address the questions that I'm getting in my office every day on the phone. And one of them is the whole question about the SAT and the ACT. Obviously, a lot of SAT and ACT tests were canceled, and a lot of students have begun the senior year without having taken the SAT or ACT. And they're concerned, when will I take it? Will I have a chance to take it? And I wanted everybody to know that most of the schools in our region are test score optional now, meaning that they will review your application and are doing admittance without having to have SAT or ACT scores. As far as I know, the only major school in what I would consider our region that is still requiring a test for admission is Purdue. But IU Bloomington, IUPUI, Ball State, Indiana State, University of Southern Indiana, University of Evansville, all are test score optional. Now, some schools may still require tests for certain programs or certain scholarships. For instance, this year we have changed our scholarship program to take the SAT or ACT out of it. It's basically based strictly on GPA. But other schools may be admitting students without test scores, but still want an SAT or an ACT for a scholarship. And some programs, that are still like an engineering program or a nursing program may still require an SAT or an ACT. But just so you know, you don't have to put off this process until after you've taken the SAT or ACT. We encourage everybody to move now as far as getting their applications into colleges. And you should be applying to colleges now. We get the majority of our applications in September, October, November. Things move much more quickly now. And it's really nice if you can have all of your applications in by the holidays. And then sometimes take the holidays, take that break to kind of figure out where you want to go. And that kind of leads me into the main part of what I want to talk about is how do you decide where you want to go? And I've been doing this for actually, as I said, 21 years here, but 30 years overall. And I have one daughter who went through this back in 2011. Now she's in the nurse practitioner program at USI. But I also have another daughter who's a senior in high school. So we're doing this again. And just like before, we're getting everything in the mail, like all of you are. You're getting pamphlets from schools you've never heard of every day, emails, by the tons, phone calls occasionally. And so how do you begin to actually figure out, well, where do we even begin to look? We have 300 brochures in a box in the other room. Where do we actually visit? And kind of the process that I've come up with over the years is you need to answer yes to 3 questions. And that's the way you begin your search. And the 3 questions, the first one is, does the school have the major or program that my son or daughter is interested in? If you're interested in architecture, why would you visit a school that doesn't have architecture? So does it have the program that my son or daughter is interested in? 2, can they get in? There's all different kinds of admissions requirements from the very, very selective schools to open enrollment and everything in between. So you want to determine, is this, someplace that, my son or daughter, if they apply, do they have a good chance of being accepted? And the third one, and maybe the most important, is can we as a family afford to send our child to that school? And what you'll find is as you go through this process, you'll find a number of schools that you can answer yes to all three questions, and that's how you begin to narrow the search down. Okay, you've narrowed it down that way, and then it really comes down to geography. How far are you willing to travel? How far is your son or daughter willing to go away from home to go to college? Just some data that I've learned over the years is that in Indiana, the majority of students will not travel further than 63 miles to go to college. So I know a lot of times when this whole process starts, your sons and daughters are automatically thinking of University of Hawaii or Southern Cal or University of Miami. But the data shows that in most cases, if you're from Evansville, you'll probably go no further than West Lafayette or Louisville or Carbondale or Bowling Green, Kentucky, and probably somewhere within that radius. So you begin to look at the geography, how far are we willing to travel? And then it comes down to actually visiting the schools. And before I talk about the visit part of it, I just want to really drill this home, is that every college and university out there can and will give your child a great education. They can all get them to where they want to go. It just has to be the right fit. Sometimes people think, well, they have to go to this certain school because of its certain reputation for this or that. But that's okay if it's the right fit. But if it's not the right fit, it's a bad idea. So every school, from the small little private school to the giant state university and everything in between, can get them to where they want to go. So they take the visit. And the visit is, I recommend actually visiting during the week. I know all colleges, including ours, we have weekend visits, and sometimes that's what you have to do because of work and school. But I think to really get a flavor for the college campus, it's important to be there during a weekday, see it as the students do on a daily basis. And you're going to get a lot of information from admissions people and financial aid people, and it's all good information to have. It's probably more information than you can take in. But more than anything, what you're looking for on that day is for your child to get the feeling for that place. And I liken it to, trying on a coat. You try it on. Do the buttons button up? Are the sleeves the right length? Is it the right fit? And I always say to the students, say to yourself, do I see myself here? And if you do, I mean, that could be the place for you, or maybe not. And sometimes a student may say, I really want to go to school A, and someone may say, well, why school A? And they say, I don't really know, but I just like it. That's a good reason. You've answered all the other questions. It has your major. You can afford it. You can get in. All those other things are there, but it just feels right. And whatever that is for that student, it could be something that makes no sense to the rest of us, but to them it's important, and that is key. So I tell students all the time, listen to your heart. It'll steer you in the right direction. But do these visits, and the fall is a good time. Right now, it's a tricky situation with some of the schools. Some of the schools are not allowing on-campus visits. Some are. And I don't believe a virtual visit can equal an on-campus visit. But if that's what you have to do, you may have to do that. One of the other things I wanted to address is there's a sentiment out there nowadays that, is college really worth it? It's a lot of money, and what is it really something that's going to be important to me? And I can't stress enough how important an education is. Yes, it's not for everybody. There are some people that can take other paths and be successful. But if you have the opportunity to go to college and get an education and to get a degree, it's something that they can never take away from you. And it opens up so many doors that may not open otherwise. And I use my own story as an example. I went to college to be a teacher. I majored in history and secondary education. And, that was the plan. I knew what I wanted to major in. But then I graduated and began looking for a job. And as I was looking for a job, there was a lot of people doing the same thing. And I found a job as an admissions counselor at a small little private college in the Milwaukee area. And I thought, well, I need a job, and this might be a good thing. I'll be working in education. I'll be working with young people. And, this will be a good job for maybe a year or so until I transition into that teaching job. That was in 1988. I'm still there. I've been to other schools. I've been at USI for a while. The key is that I did not go to college to be the associate director of undergraduate admissions at the University of Southern Indiana. But had I not gone to college, had I not gotten my degree, I would have never had the opportunity to be in this career that I've truly loved over the last 30 years, and it's been so fulfilling. So that's why people always want to plan, and yes, I understand that, but sometimes you just have to move forward and have faith and know that if you keep moving forward, opportunities will arise, and things that you hadn't thought of may happen. You just don't want to stop. So be careful about the gap year. I know a lot of people are talking about taking a gap year. They always talk about that. The problem with the gap year is sometimes the gap year becomes 5 years and 10 years. And what I see sometimes, the student who comes back to college and now they've decided at age 35, they know what they want to do and they really have a desire to do it. But there's a lot of roadblocks. They're married, they have a home, they have a car payment, they have children, they have a full-time job, and it's very, very difficult. My admiration goes out to those people that do it, but it's hard. So you seniors in high school that may be listening, this is your time. 18 to 22, the world is saying to you, find yourself, find your way. Don't hold back. Just keep moving forward. And lastly, when I mentioned question number one, does the school have my program? And somebody probably said out there, well, I don't know what I want to major in. I don't know. I ask a question when I meet with students every time. I always open up with, what do you want to major in? And I can tell immediately that they don't know by the look of terror in their eyes. And I tell them very quick, frankly, I just say, you don't know what you want to be when you're 30? Join the club. It's very normal for students to be undecided when they go off to college. And I'll give you another data point. 70% of college freshmen across the United States will change their major in their first year. So it's perfectly fine to not know exactly. And as I said before, 31 years of being in college admissions means I've been to 31 years of graduation ceremonies. I've yet to see somebody walk across the stage with a degree in undecided. It will come. And every school has the people there to help you find your way. It will come.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for all that information. I think he's going to stay here and be here just in case if we have some questions or anything that may come later in our presentation. But it's great information, and it will definitely help some families and students navigate the college admission process. So as we transition to Alex Samuel for our financial aid portion of it, I would like to remind some students and parents about a few housekeeping items. So if you need a transcript sent to an institution, you will need to log into your parchment.com account and request a transcript that way. If you do not have or have created an account, please reach out to your counselor. They will help you through that process. Most high schools are using Google Classroom this year as a way to store and or send information out to your students. So some of this information could include scholarship opportunities, career opportunities, and just general announcements about the year. So if you do not have access as a guardian to your child's Google Classroom, reach out to their school counselor. They can help you get that access to their Google Classrooms. And I did want to take a short minute to remind that the New Tech students use Echo as their learning management system. So reach out to the New Tech counselor, Ann Gamal, and she can help you get access to that if you do not have access to that. So, and just the last little piece of information, just make sure that all of our EVSC students are checking their email on a daily basis. We do send information out via email, and so if there's a missed opportunity, we don't want that to happen. So make sure you are checking your email daily and or checking your Google Classrooms periodically throughout the school day. So other than that, I would like to introduce Alex Samuel from InvestEd, and he will lead our discussion on financial aid. All right, Alex.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I do want to take the opportunity right now that the families that are logged in right here, thank you for joining. We really do appreciate it. And thank you again to EVSC for welcoming InvestEd down today. Like we've mentioned before, but I just want to remind you guys again, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and put them right there in the chat. We have people here in the room and virtually watching the chat, helping to answer questions. So if there are things that come up about college admissions or even financial aid as we talk tonight, please know you can ask those questions right there and they will get answered. So up on the screen, you will be seeing an actual PowerPoint presentation. I want to walk you through a couple things, and sometimes it's easier to show you than just to explain it to you. Jumping right in, this is what we're going to be talking about this evening. A quick little overview of college financial aid, discussing some of the financial aid terms that you may be familiar with, or maybe you're learning for the first time. A couple next steps for you, and then, of course, showing you where you can get some great resources. Just a quick introduction on myself. My name is Alex, like Ryan mentioned, and I do work for Invested. Invested's a not-for-profit organization based in Indianapolis that travels the state of Indiana helping high school students and families prep and plan for life after school. We are a completely free resource for you, regardless of what you want to do, where you want to go, or how you want to do it. We're here for you along every step of the college planning and paying for process. Going ahead and jumping into the actual financial aid overview, the first thing I want to make you guys aware of is financial aid is the way that we're actually covering the costs of education. Again, education looks a little different for each and every one of you guys as students and even parents. It can be the traditional 2-year or 4-year school, getting that associate's or bachelor's degree. It could be maybe getting some training or certifications from the state of Indiana, or even going directly into the workforce. But financial aid specifically as it pertains to like secondary education, like a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, the financial aid describes how we actually pay for that education. The overall goal, and again, like I said, to cover the cost of education, but the people who have these monies, the federal government, the state of Indiana, and even the colleges and universities your students are planning on attending, they're all trying to evaluate your family's ability to cover the costs of education, and then they're trying to divvy out the amount of money that they have as equally as possible. When it comes to financial aid, we kind of break it into two different sections. The first section, like you can see there at the very bottom of that slide, is the gift-based aid, things like grants and scholarships. Gift-based financial aid is free money that you do not have to repay. The other part of financial aid that we like to talk about is self-help aid. Self-help aid is still really good and important to help you cover the cost of school, but you have to work for it or even pay it back in the long run. Jumping right into grants, again, gift based aid for college, they are primarily going to be need based, which means depending on your level of financial need, which we figure out through the FAFSA, that free application for federal student aid, you may qualify for some of this free money. Grants are primarily coming from the federal government and the state of Indiana. You can see there with the federal government, the Pell Grant is the largest and most common grant. This year, the maximum amount of that federal Pell Grant is the $6,345 you see listed there. The way that this grant works is actually pretty cool. It works on a sliding scale. So depending on your level of financial need, you may qualify for every penny of that 6345. You may qualify for 3,000, you might qualify for 800, or you might not qualify at all. It does depend on your level of need. The next grant listed there is the SEOG, or the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. That ranges from $100 up to $4,000, and that is another grant from the federal government that you may receive. It's not a guarantee, but you may receive that to help you cover the cost of your education. There is another grant called the Teach Grant. It's a pretty common federal grant. Helps cover about $4,000 of education per year for students wanting to go into education. One of the things that we talk about with this grant, and then it kind of floods into other grants and scholarships, is we need to make sure that we're understanding the obligations necessary to maintain our grant or scholarship eligibilities. I was actually a recipient of the federal Teach Grant for 3 of my 4 years in school. And one of the things that I signed into and I knew about going into the Teach Grant was that I needed to teach for 4 years of the first 8 years out of my college graduation. Very similar to Mark earlier, I knew that I wanted to go more college admissions coming out of school rather than jumping into a classroom. So for me, I knew I wasn't going to meet those requirements. So my Teach grant turned into a Teach loan. I knew that going into it. So we recommend you guys as families, as you're going through these processes, just make sure you understand all of your obligations. You can see down there at the bottom, the state of Indiana does have some pretty decent grant programs. The first one there, some of you may be familiar with that 21st Century Scholars Program. If you are a 21st Century Scholar, please, I beg you, make sure you're completing your Scholar Track assignments. If you do not know what that means, let's turn to our counselors at the school to make sure that we are checking to make sure if we are a 21st Century Scholar, and if we aren't, maybe we can talk about some other state of Indiana grant processes. But just as a reminder, that 21st Century Scholars Award goes to actually cover the full tuition and fees for state schools here in Indiana. Schools like IU, Ball State, and Purdue. At a private school like University of Evansville or Butler or Valparaiso up in Northwest Indiana, those get partially covered. The tuition is partially covered with that 21st Century Scholars Grant. But again, it does go to help cover the cost of your education. You can see there the Frank O'Bannon Grant, which is another state of Indiana grant to help you cover the cost of school. Visit our website at investedindiana.org/grants for more information not only on these grants here, but some others that are available at the federal and state level. One thing that we want to remind families of, especially as students are going into their semesters of college, your state of Indiana grant eligibility, especially with that Frank O'Bannon grant, is tied to the number of credits you take per year. So as you see here, the first student you see on the left-hand side of the screen is considered an on-time student. They're taking 15 credits per semester. They're finishing their 4-year degree in 4 years. That student is eligible for the maximum amount of state of Indiana grant aid. This other student is considered a full-time student. They're still taking classes, they're still eligible for those state of Indiana grants, but they're eligible for a reduced amount because you can see that 4-year degree takes a little longer to finish. It actually goes into the 5th year. So again, we want to make sure we're taking the proper number of credits to maintain that grant eligibility. The next part of the process of paying for school and financial aid are scholarships. Scholarships can be need or merit-based. We talked about a need-based aid already with the grants. A merit-based scholarship can come from the national search sites you see listed there, as well as the college and universities, and even some of the local community organizations. But a merit-based scholarship is given out to students based on the things that they are doing well now while in high school. Things like academics, athletics, being a part of the drama club, or even like playing music or designing things really well. Those are your students' merits, and they can earn scholarships for those. We recommend following this pyramid pretty closely, starting at the top with those national search sites. It's good to have a presence there, but it's not as likely your student will receive one of those scholarships. So spend more time at the college and university level looking for scholarships, and then even more time at the local community level, talking to school counselors, community foundations, even businesses where parents may work or even students could work part-time. On our website, if you visit investedindiana.org/scholarships, we have some additional great search tips for you. There's a great one-page resource that walks you through where to look for scholarships and some things to watch out for when applying. Here at Invested, we also offer scholarships. We give away 5 $1,000 scholarships per year to students here in the state of Indiana. You can apply at investedindiana.org/1000, and the entire application process is down there in that bottom right-hand corner. Your first name, your last name, and your contact info. Since it is a drawing for students here in the state, that's all we need. We don't need your GPA or test scores. So this is a great way to start your scholarship search if you haven't already done so. Transitioning a little bit to the self-help aid. This is where, again, it's still considered financial aid because it does help you cover the cost of school, but your students have to work for and maybe earn these funds to help cover the cost of school. What's listed here is student employment, and it's a great way to earn money, not only to put some money in your pocket or even help pay for tuition, but it can also help to minimize your student loans that you have to take out. And we'll talk about those here in a moment. There's a program called the Federal Work Study, and you can see that there under the options in that first bullet. The Federal Work Study is a partnership, actually, between the federal government and the colleges, where they say, hey, if you need help paying for school, here is an additional way. They're incentivizing you to work because then you can use some of those funds to pay for your tuition. What I did when I was in college was I worked out a little agreement with the payroll office that they would save 50% of my check every single 2 weeks in an account on campus. That way I was kind of forcing myself to save money for school. That other 50% came to me that I could use for gas to drive home to see mom and dad and going out with friends to the movies and out to dinner. But again, it was a way to force me to save money for school to help reduce my total student loan amount. Speaking of educational loans, it's kind of the last part of the paying for college process because, as that cool little graphic says, you do need to repay educational loans. There are 3 main types of educational loans, and I have them here for you. The first one is the federal direct loan. This is for the students. Your only eligibility students for this loan comes through the FAFSA. Again, that free application for federal student aid. You can see it's a low interest rate of the 2.75% and just over a 1% processing fee. That's a huge benefit to the students. There are annual limits on the loan. Freshman year, it's $5,500. Sophomore year, it's $6,500. And then junior and senior year, it's $7,500. So there is a good chunk of money right there to help students pay for school. But if there are more funds that do need covered, the other 2 options here are available. The next one you see is the Federal Plus loan, which is the parent loan for undergraduate students. That is a loan that either mom or dad would apply for to see if they're eligible to help cover the cost of school. You can see the interest rate jumps to about 5.3%. That's a fixed loan, by the way. 5.3% fixed interest rate with a 4% processing fee. With this one, if a parent is denied for the Parent Plus loan, the student is eligible for a few thousand additional dollars under their names. Then the last loan option you see are the private loans. Those come from banks, credit unions, nonprofit organizations. They're there maybe as another option for families to look at. Interest rates are going to vary. They could be higher or lower than the federal rate, and the fees typically aren't there. But with this loan, typically students plus parents or a trusted adult will be required to be on that loan application. Moving forward, I want to talk about a couple terms, some of which I've used already tonight, but they're good for you to know. The first one is FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. This is the starting point for college financial aid because this is the annual online form you fill out for federal, state of Indiana, and college free funds. Again, earlier, we talked about how the overall goal of the financial aid process is to evaluate your family's ability to cover the cost of education. The main way we do that is here through the FAFSA, specifically through your EFC, or your expected family contribution. This EFC is an actual calculation that the FAFSA does that's based on student plus parent income and asset information. This calculation is then used to determine your level of financial need. The higher that number is, maybe the lower amount of free money you'll qualify for. But the lower that number is, but there's the potential to receive some of that free money. Again, this EFC gets sent off to the colleges, the state of Indiana, and the federal government. Visit our website at investedindiana.org to learn more about not only the FAFSA, but also that EFC to see how, again, it's used on the FAFSA. Another term that I want to make you aware of is about the costs of college. The first one I want to show you is direct cost. This is what you guys as students are paying directly to the universities. So this would be your tuition and fees or your cost for classes, and then room and board, your costs for living and eating on campus. There's another cost, though, known as the cost of attendance, which does include your classes and your living on campus, but it also includes some federally required estimates. Estimates for things like books and transportation and other personal expenses. One really important thing to know about this cost of attendance, those estimates are based on students who were at that university before you. So it's a really good indication of what your bottom dollar or top cost could be, for a school per year. So as you're planning to cover the cost of school, let's look to the cost of attendance to see if a school is affordable for us or not, rather than just that direct cost. The last term I want to make you aware of is the Federal Student Aid ID. The FSA ID is a username and a password that a student and at least one parent will need to create in order to file the FAFSA. Keep in mind, the FAFSA, again, the free application for federal student aid, always belongs to the student. So when you log in, you will use student info, but the parent also will need to have this login to sign the FAFSA at the end and to pull some of their tax information. This FSA ID is tied to your first name, last name, date of birth, and social. And when you go to our website at investedindiana.org/resources, you can find a one-page document that is a step-by-step guide on how to create this FSA ID. The first thing you'll see is the website, and again, it'll take you right to this page right here, where you see create an account for either the student or the parent. A couple tips for you guys when it comes to creating your FSA IDs. Students and parents do need to have completely separate contact info, so emails and phone numbers need to be totally separate because the accounts are separate. Also, students, we recommend not using your high school email address. I'm not sure how all the individual schools here at EVSC handle those actual email processes, but typically those get deleted once you graduate from high school. So we want to make sure we can still access this FSA ID after graduation. So let's use a personal email account. Again, you will need a social security number in order to create this FSA ID, and you are required to link either your mobile phone or an email address. A couple next steps for you guys, because I know some of you are in this part of the process. The FAFSA opened on October 1st, which was just last week. Some of you watching may already have the application filed, and if that's the case, absolute congratulations to you. If you're still working on it, that's good. Let's go ahead and see if we can get that done. A couple tips for you guys. If you are graduating this year in the class of 21, you are filing the 21-22 FAFSA because as you can see on that chart, your FAFSA year matches your college academic year. So again, graduating in 21, you are filing the 21-22 FAFSA. And on the FAFSA, we do use completed tax data. So again, if you're graduating in 21, filing that 21-22 FAFSA, we are using 2019's tax information. The state of Indiana and colleges have deadlines for the FAFSA. The state of Indiana says April 15th. The colleges may say otherwise, especially if you are applying to a school that has an early decision date. So let's make sure we are asking the colleges what their FAFSA deadlines may be. We do not want to miss out on free money because we miss one of these important dates. Once you have finished the FAFSA, and again, if you have questions about filing the FAFSA and the different steps of that, please feel free to come to us. We're happy to help. But once you do get it filed, we're looking to make sure that your application status says processed successfully. And if you need to make any changes, you can do so right there on the application by clicking Make FAFSA Corrections. You can also view what's called your Student Aid Report, which is a list of all the questions you answered on the FAFSA. It's a great way to check to make sure you did things correctly. We also understand that the FAFSA doesn't cover everything in your family's financial situation, especially now in a pandemic. That's why we're doing this, again, virtually rather than in person at your schools. But if something is off, if 2019's taxes don't paint an accurate picture of where you're at financially today, you need to have a conversation with the college financial aid office because the college financial aid office can actually amend your EFC, potentially allowing you to be eligible for more of that free money for school. Here are some of the common reasons we've seen for those EFC changes. But again, if there's something else that your family is going through, have that open communication with the financial aid office. The colleges will also send out financial aid offers. This is another great way to figure out if a college is going to be affordable for you or not. Here with the financial aid offers, they're all typically going to say or contain about the same information: the cost of attendance, the financial aid awards that you're receiving, and also your options to pay any remaining balances you have. Additionally, the timing and delivery of those notifications may change depending on the schools. Once you start receiving these notifications, we do recommend reading through, understanding your obligations, and asking questions. Here is a sample of what a financial aid offer letter may look like. Again, at the top of that form, you'll see cost of attendance, which includes your tuition, your room and board, and those federally required fees. But then underneath, you see the financial aid offers. Again, keep in mind, financial aid is more than just the free money that's available. You see that this student actually qualified for some federal Pell Grant, some state of Indiana aid, and money from the college. But underneath, there's some more of that self-help aid. Some of the funds that you have to work for or pay back, but it still helps to cover the cost of school. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see what the colleges will walk you through on your other options to pay your remaining balance. It's going to be a combination of outside scholarships, paying money out of pocket, maybe even a payment plan, or loans. Now, I want to give you some free resources. First and foremost, on October 25th, it's a Sunday coming up here very shortly. From 2 o'clock until 4 o'clock, financial aid experts from across the state of Indiana will be available to help you file this application. Or if you've already finished it, those financial aid experts will be there to help you look over the application. This will be a virtual event this year, so please visit collegegoalsunday.org for more information about the event and how to get the link to sign up. I've mentioned our website a few times this evening. Again, we are a free resource for you here in the state of Indiana. You can visit our website at investedindiana.org. And if you click on that resources tab in the top right-hand corner, you'll see some of these great free resources. A few of them I talked about today, like that how to create your FSA ID step-by-step guide, and even a checklist for the FAFSA. This is us on social media. We're on Instagram and Pinterest and Facebook and, of course, Twitter. If there's anything you need, you can follow us on those sites. Send us a message. We're happy to help you out. We're also posting where we're going to be, when we're going to be there, and some good articles to resources for you so you can be in the loop as well for the college paying and planning for process. And then finally, this is our contact information. So our phone number, our email address, and then of course, we do offer a newsletter. We send one out every month or so to families across the state of Indiana. Again, completely for free for you guys. So there across the bottom, it says investedindiana.org/mailing-list. Visit that site, put in your first name, last name, and email, and you can get that free newsletter coming your way every month or so. That is pretty much everything I have for you presentation-wise, but I want to turn things back over here to you, Ryan. Were there any questions, comments, concerns that have come in that either the Mark and I can help address today?
I do have one for Mark here. So there was a question about, should students wait to apply to colleges or universities if they have not taken an SAT or ACT? So
I would say no. Unless they are applying specifically to schools that require the SAT or ACT, I would say no. Apply early, because applying early will open up things like early decision that some schools have, and if you wait, you might miss that opportunity. So I think that they should be applying now. And if they take the test later, those scores can be added on later and possibly help them down the road. But
great, thank you. And I was just looking to see if we had any other questions or anything that we needed to share here. Alex, I think you gave a really intensive and great overview of financial aid. I know it can be scary, but I think that most of our parents and students am relieved that there are resources out there to help them through that. So I am just going to say that if any of the parents or families out there still have questions or concerns or comments, like definitely reach out to your school counselor, as they can help you with this process, and or they can connect you with the people that could help you with that too. So I would like to say this does conclude our college prep information night. But before we do go, I'd like to thank Mark Rusk, Alex Samuel, Joseph Brinkley, Heather Cook, and the EVSC for hosting our virtual college night. So thanks you to everyone actually for helping out with this. So again, if you have any additional questions, please reach out to your school counselor. They have a wealth of information and resources to help you navigate the college process. Thank you all and have a good night.